Baltimore Ravens 56. Miami Dolphins 19. The Ravens clinched the number 1 seed in the AFC. And for the second straight week, make an absolute statement against one of the best teams in the NFL. Ravens moved to 13-3. As I said, number 1 seed is locked up. They can sit their starters, do whatever they want next week. We won't see them for a few more weeks as far as the full team goes. But Lamar Jackson, for the second straight week, pushing the MVP odds in his favor even more, going 18 of 21 for 321 yards and 5 touchdowns. This was reminiscent of his MVP season in 2019, where he had many of these games where he had, 20 passing attempts, 300 plus yards, and a ton of touchdowns. Just a dominant 3-phase effort by Baltimore. Special teams was good too. Just an incredible effort by the Ravens across the board.
And the last 2 weeks are going to win him MVP as well.
They absolutely
The statement
will,
game against San Francisco and then the statement game against Miami, that will lock up MVP for Lamar Jackson, even though, over the course of the season, I don't know that he has any better of a case than 2 or 3 or 4 other players. So, yeah, I mean, this game was insane, though. Like, his best game of the season, probably Baltimore's best game of the season. They absolutely dominated. Again, for the second week in a row, I am most impressed by the fact that another defense had absolutely zero answers for this Baltimore offense. And they were down some players. Like, this is not necessarily remember, Mark Andrews has been gone for a while. Keaton Mitchell has been gone for a while. It doesn't matter. They are absolutely dominating right now. Nobody has an answer for Lamar Jackson. Nobody has an answer for remember, we drew up that one play against San Francisco where it's like, on the one hand, you've got play earlier where Lamar Jackson just goes Lamar, and there's nothing you can do about that, and he wins. And then you got Todd Monken dialing up something that's amazing. Like, this was the same thing. They had a walk-in Isaiah Likely touchdown where it's like everything's on one side of the field. We got a little leak to the tight end going left. Literally walks in. He actually stopped, slowed down, and walked over the line. Like, that's what's happening. You've got this undefendable Lamar Jackson level of play and Todd Monken dialing up crazy plays that are scheming people wide open as well. And those two things are slamming together, and no defense can come anywhere close to stopping it.
Yeah, I mean, so your point about Lamar's going to lock up the MVP over the last 2 weeks, there was a lot of analytically driven people this past week being like, man, we've never seen somebody with this level of production. I mean, Lamar's only 10th in the league in passing touchdowns or whatever it is. He's got fewer passing touchdowns than Russell Wilson, even after his 5 this week. Like, it would be one of the, lower production type of MVP cases that you make, and then he comes out and puts this game together. But so I think there's 2 narratives that are interesting here. The idea that Lamar Jackson was MVP in 2019 and awesome, and then his playmakers were still not great then. Never really have been, and as soon as he got a few, good guys together, they would get hurt, whatever it was, and then Lamar got hurt the last 2 years. And then everybody soured on Greg Roman, right? Greg Roman has had this interesting career as offensive coordinator where he was like the guy who got Colin Kaepernick going, the guy who gets Lamar Jackson going, but there was a cap to that offense. And so the narrative was, what if Lamar had playmakers, and what if he didn't have this cap set by Greg Roman? He set the good foundation. We're going to run Lamar. We're going to build everything around that. We'll create some open throws, Lamar's dynamic ability. So now you have Todd Monken coming in, and you have first-rounder Zay Flowers. Flowers has become a dynamic weapon. He's growing on me more and more every week here, Sam. You have OBJ making that incredible back shoulder catch. You have Rashad Bateman healthy. And even though Mark Andrews isn't there, Isaiah Likely, he could be a high-end tight end, if he had the opportunities, and now he does. So now you have better playmakers, good play calling, on top of the foundation that's been set, which is Lamar Jackson as a design runner, as a scrambler, as a pocket passer has all these different ways to beat you. And I think we're starting to see that all come together these last few weeks. It's been there in pockets throughout the whole season, right? It's been there in pockets, but this has been just dominant over the last 2 weeks what Baltimore's offense has been able to do. And as you said, against good defenses that haven't had answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Their offense has been really impressive. And then the other side of the ball, they did this defensive effort without Kyle Hamilton, who did miss the game, who was injured. And, that potentially you would have thought heading into this game was a real loss to them. Hamilton has been so instrumental in everything they do on defense. Miami, we know, loves to attack the middle of the field. And it didn't matter at all. Now, This game, I think, got away from Miami in the first half, and then the second half was just all Baltimore. But Tyreek Hill has that drop in the end zone. That's a 4-point mistake. They have to kick the field goal right after that. That was going to put them up a touchdown, right? They were tied and going in.
They got up 7-0. I think it was 10-7 Baltimore when he dropped it. It would have been 14-10.
So, it would have put them ahead.
That was days ago.
Right. But it would have put them ahead. And then before the half is when it really swung away from them. Miami tries to get in some plays before the 2-minute warning. They try and rush. Instead, turnover. Ravens get a touchdown. Isaiah Likely, by the way, in that play, snags it one-handed. And it was one of those one-handed plays where at no point does his second hand ever move near the ball. He just snagged it left-handed and then one-handed tucked it in and just kept running. This hand never went near the football. You rarely see that. Anyway, pretty fun. So just before that, Miami's trying to get back in the game, trying to recover from that screw-up they had earlier, the 4-point mistake, and instead turnover. Baltimore adds another one, and from that point on, the game basically never got near Miami again. I
want to talk about the play that you referenced right before the 2-minute warning. From a Miami standpoint, this felt a lot like the Buffalo game way back. Was it week 3 in Buffalo, where it was back and forth early, back and forth. It looked like it's going to be a shootout, and then Buffalo, who still had Matt Milano at the time, and the defense was really playing well. They're coming back around now. The defense was really playing well, and they just cracked down. They just made life difficult for Miami. That play with 2:01 left, so it's right before the 2-minute warning. Miami's going to sneak a play in. If you've seen some of the heat maps that go around on Twitter and everything that show where Miami throws the ball, they have this pocket of passes right inside the numbers, right? That 10 to 15 yard range, that little in cut behind the linebackers. And it was their very first downfield pass, or their very first non-screen in this pass was that little in cut to Tyreek Hill. And the Ravens just read it. I mean, it was Roquan Smith, incredible play. He just jumped it. I always used to joke about defenses covering the heat maps. I mean, there is this element of Baltimore did a really nice job of compressing the middle of the field and saying, Miami's, they'll throw that ball 8 to 10 times a game.
Right.
That same exact route to that same exact spot. And it was like Roquan just said, I'm just going to take this away. And he makes the one-handed catch and picks it off. It was an absolute game changer, but just a great job by the Ravens taking away what Miami likes to do over and over again and does well.
And they're really hustling that play because the previous play went off at 2:20. So 20 seconds between that play, 19 seconds between that play and the last one. When you think about how quickly, that's legitimate hurry up. That's the kind of end of game, 10 seconds on the clock, we got to get up and spike it type of time scale. That's the sort of pace they were running that at to try and get that last play before the 2-minute warning. And instead, it ends up being the reason you turn the ball over instead. Baltimore ends up getting the score instead before the half, and they not only get the ball to start the second half, but they run an 80-yard kick back on the start of the second half as well. So
3 phases, baby.
Everything. It's one of those. This is why that either side of halftime is so important in games, and all of it went against Miami in this game.
And that hurry up just before the 2-minute warning, a lot of teams will do that and just try to draw you off sides. They're like, we're not going to run a play, but we'll just run up and just try to steal an extra free 5 yards. They were trying to keep the tempo and steal a play, and it ended up going back against them. So again, I think Baltimore did a fantastic job defensively. Special teams contributed. Lamar Jackson in the offense was unstoppable. The Zay Flowers 75-yarder too. They took a little page out of Miami's book. They used that motion, had him on the run, running vertically. Complete coverage bust by Miami. Get the ball into Zay Flowers' hands in space, and he turns it into the touchdown. Just an incredible game by Baltimore across the board. And I do wonder how much what we talked about in the preview show, I think, was 2 things. Baltimore got to see this offense the previous week against San Francisco, maybe had a little familiarity with it, and Baltimore being uniquely qualified with athletic linebackers like Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen and built through the middle to be able to take away some of those middle-of-the-field passes. Because after that slow start, much like the Buffalo game, they started to take away what the Dolphins did well. Tua had another overthrow that got tipped up for another interception. They just took away what Miami liked to do well over the middle of the field.
Baltimore was so prepared for that play just before the 2-minute warning, by the way, that all Roquan Smith did, I think, was take it away from a pass breakup. The guy behind the corner that was on Tyreek Hill, I think, was going to break that up, even if Roquan Smith hadn't managed to snag it out of the air. One-handed, by the way. That was a pretty impressive one-handed snag himself. But multiple players were all over that play by the Miami Dolphins. So that whether it's, San Francisco gave them a taste the week before, or whether it's simply they were that prepared for this Miami offense, they were really prepared for that play, knew it was coming. Miami went to what they like to do. They were so confident that they could get it off before the 2-minute warning, and instead Baltimore was just all over it, and that was a huge swing.
So coming out of this, Baltimore, as I said, number 1 seed. They're going to play Pittsburgh next week. They're the first game next week, Saturday afternoon, 4:30. They can sit their starters. They have that beautiful decision to make. Do we screw our division rival Steelers? Or do we sit and rest? It is, a lot of time off with that bye. I do wonder. They had the bye back in 2019 and came out and lost against Tennessee. I don't remember if they sat their starters back then, but I do wonder how they're going to react to that.
2 more things coming out of this game, though. Number 1, scorigami.
Great.
Never been a 56-19 game before.
We saw history.
Yeah. Number 2, the Miami Dolphins lost Bradley Chubb late in the game when they had their starters in, buried, going nowhere.
It's a big loss.
It is. Having already lost Jalen Phillips earlier in the year.
Right.
Bradley Chubb is not one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, but his importance becomes magnified when you've already lost one of your most important, or your best pass rusher, I would say. And to have him in that late in the game when clearly it's a no-hope situation, there's a reason most teams don't do that, and this is that reason.
He's been having a fantastic season. I do remind people, too, you can't literally sit every starter.
Right. Somebody's got to play.
He's one of your high-end starters.
Right.
And so, and Mike McDaniel said, that looks pretty dumb, basically. Paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah, ACL injury, they knew, right away they must have had the MRI already and confirmed it, but that's not great.
Jalen Waddle did miss the game. I don't think we knew that at the time when we previewed it. Maybe he's really the key to that offense. So Miami.
Maybe he's MVP.
So Sunday Night Football is going to be Dolphins-Bills. Winner gets the AFC East crown, and the Dolphins in the number 2 seed. That's going to be Sunday Night Football. It's in Miami. It's going to be a great game.